Hello there and welcome. This is the Disability Law Show. Good to have you along for the half hour. If you can hang in for the entire 30, we always teach you things about the world of disability law, dealing with that insurer, and then reaching out to Sivan and his team as well. My name's John Scholes, simply your host. All the brains is right beside me, and you want to reach out to Sivan anytime, disability lawyer, of course. Phone number, consultations are free, chats, of course, are free. That number, 1-855-821-5900. Email as well, help@disabilityrights.ca. Always have a main topic, which we do a little later on in the show. This week, it's going to be 3 common questions about IMEs, independent medical examinations. That is all ahead. I think we're going to get to a phone call or two as well from our radio shows, but that's all in the near future for sure. We always start off with a success story or a case of the day. Sivan, what do you got this week?
So, John, this is an interesting case that came across my desk. An individual who called me this week, he's in his late 40s. He's an IT professional, and he suffers from a variety of physical issues, a lot of chronic pain. It doesn't matter what the reason is, but he has a lot of that, and there's a long history for that. And, of course, because of that, he has difficulty sleeping, so there is depression, anxiety, and all kind of the mental aspects of dealing with chronic pain. And so he's being treated by a family doctor. He has a psychotherapist. He has a physiatrist. He has a bunch of people, chiropractor, just a bunch of people treating him. And he's doing everything that he's trying to do. He's been on long-term disability now for about a year or so. And the insurance company, the adjuster, called him recently, this was last week, and told him, well, we just had one of our in-house doctors, or medical consultants, I should say, review all of the medical records that we have for you, and they don't believe that you are as disabled as your doctors are saying that you are. And so this raises the issue, which comes up quite often, which is when the insurance company says to you that they have their own medical consultants, which, by the way, a lot of times are family doctors, GPs, sometimes not even GPs. They just people of different specialties, not MDs, who review these records, do not meet with the individual, do not assess or examine the individual, but simply review. They do a paper review, it's called, and then blurt out to the adjuster their conclusions, which contradict what the treating doctors are saying. And what happens is the insurance company, the adjuster, then comes back and says, well, based on what our medical consultant is saying, you are not disabled, or you should be doing X, or you should be doing Y, whatever. They come up with a whole myriad of suggestions or conclusions. And of course, this gets people into a panic mode. And this individual here who called me was pretty panicked, because all he could hear is the insurance company has a doctor that doesn't agree with his doctors, and the insurance company may stop his benefits because of that. And I said, wait a second. I said, number one, let me tell you this. This is very common, okay? So it's not a unique case. So relax when it comes to that. They're not picking on you per se. This is what they do. Remember, insurance companies are there to make money, and one of the ways they do it is trying to find every which way an excuse not to pay you. This is one of the methods they use, unfortunately. What is the strength of that method, or how often are they successful in doing that? Well, the reality is that if you let them, they'll be successful because they'll simply stop your benefits. But here's what you need to look at or think about from a common sense standpoint. You have all these doctors on your side, I told them. You have all these treatment providers. I think there were about 5, okay, between the family doctor, the psychotherapist, the physiatrist, the chiropractor, I think there was a massage therapist. I said, all of them are saying you cannot work at the present time. They're all treating you. They've all been treating you for a while. They know you. Here we have the insurance company coming with somebody, which we don't even know who it is, who never even met you or examined you. If this ever went before a judge, it won't. But if it ever did, what do you think a judge would say? Out. And he says, of course the judge would agree with my doctor. I said, of course. If you think the adjuster doesn't know that, they do. They do. But they are trying to gaslight you. I'm sorry, there's no other way for me to characterize this. I know, again, there's a lot of adjusters looking, watching this show. I know that because they email me. I know that there's people in the insurance industry that are very upset when I say this, but they gaslight you when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I say that because it simply makes no sense. If they really wanted to do their job properly, then that medical consultant, whoever that person is, would have asked to examine you. Maybe they would have even reached out, with your permission, to your doctors to speak with them, to get more information. No, they did a paper review. What the hell does that mean? It means they reviewed your medical records. It's just words on paper. It's not you. And so what I calmed him down, and I said, look, if the adjuster insinuates, let alone tells you, insinuates that your benefits will get cut off or that somehow he's going to take some action which is against what your doctors are saying, we'll act. We'll push back very, very hard, and you'll see how quickly they're going to fold. Insurance companies often work on this idea, on this presumption that people are just going to do whatever they tell them. If you educate yourself, which is what we're doing here, by the way, we're helping you educate yourself. If you understand what your rights are, if you understand that you have a lot more power than you think you do when it comes to your claim to the insurance company, you will feel much stronger. You will not be bullied or harassed by the insurance company. You'll understand what your rights are, and you'll know what your options are. And your options are to say no and to push back. And again, John, I know it's easier said than done, but this is what we do on a daily basis, myself and my team. And so I tell people, give me a call, just like this gentleman. Let's talk. Doesn't cost anything to talk to us about this stuff, for us to give you this advice. And if I'm not available, somebody else on my team is going to be available. And we do this across the country, with the exception of Quebec. That's right. Different laws there, but everywhere in the country. We have offices in BC, in Alberta, in Ontario, but we do work like this. We answer these questions across the country. People contact us. Do not be shy. Do not be afraid. Give us a call. We'll help you.
Are they not relying on a power imbalance of that? The David and Goliath story you always talk about, right? Yeah.
David and Goliath, right? That's what it seems like, right? Insurance company versus an individual. Billion-dollar company, a person who now can't oftentimes pay the bills because they can't work. David and Goliath. And people say, well, how can I take on Goliath? And I said, well, what happened in that story of David and Goliath? Who won? Mm-hmm. Who won? David won. You just have to stand up for your rights. And again, most people, John, I understand, they don't have the headspace for it, especially if it's a mental health issue. But this is what we are here for. We are here to help you push back. If you let us, we are going to take the fight to the insurance company. And once we get involved, the insurance company can't speak with you anymore. They can't email you, call you, whatever. They have to go through us. So let us create that space that you need to get to heal. But yes, it's a David and Goliath, but again, Goliath fell down very hard. Goliath lost that battle. And this is what we show listen, if I was not telling the truth, I would not be here. I wouldn't have a business, we wouldn't have a law firm, we wouldn't be able to have all these reviews that we have on the website about people that we've been able to help. You can stand up for your rights, but you have to make that decision. You have to trust us, and you have to talk to us, and then we can tell you how to do this and how we can help you.
So, I mean, based on that technique, and you worked on that side for many years, you know what it's like, you know the inner workings of the insurance companies. Based on that, I mean, they got a pretty high batting average for shaking people off.
Yes.
Just using that, like, I don't know, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, is it that bad? I mean,
well, I've
the attempt to do it, right?
It's the attempt.
Yeah.
Look, they have hundreds, maybe thousands of claimants at any given point across the country, probably thousands, I assume. I don't have numbers. But the reality is that if they're doing this to, I don't know, 1,000 people in any given day, any given week, month, whatever, most people, I would think, believe in that power imbalance. Most people believe they have no choice. Most people believe or defer to what the insurance company says. I suspect that it's a fairly high batting average for the insurance company. And if the insurance company is able to save $100,000 on a given claim, okay, I'm throwing a number out, but I actually think it's a lot higher. But let's say $100,000. Multiply that by 10 claims. Multiply that by 100 claims, 1,000. We're talking about millions of dollars that these insurance companies are pocketing that are owed to people and their families who are struggling. It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. This is where we come in. Myself, my team, we can help you go after the insurance company. We can't do it if you don't reach out. And by the way, I'm happy to speak with you, and if you want to go to a different lawyer, go to a different lawyer. I don't care. We're busy. I'll be very happy to help you, and I think my team can be a phenomenal job, and insurance companies know us because we get results, and they know that they can't play around with us. We know what we're doing. But if all you do is call us for advice, I'm happy about that because I know I've helped someone. That's really the whole point of this show, too.
Another great tool, pocketdisabilitylawyer.ca. Give me some details on it.
In the same vein, it's a free, anonymous website we created to let people have an opportunity to, if they don't want to call us or email us off the bat, do not Google these questions that you have about short and long-term disability. Chances are you'll get incorrect information. Not every website that comes up has the right law that's being quoted. A lot of websites from lawyers even are not updated. So we created this website, which is updated all the time, and the reality is that it's one of those kind of one-stop shop. If you have all these kinds of questions, you input whatever, there's drop-down menus, you input information about your question, not your identifying information, not the name, number, or anything like that, just what is your question, And then this website will be able to give you these answers really quickly. If at that point you want more personalized conversation, we'll talk to you for free. But at least that website, pocketdisabilitylawyer.ca, is a good starting point.
A good starting point as well if you want to join us weekly on the radio show, disabilityrights.ca. It'll give you a list of radio shows across the country that Sivan and I and his other lawyers host. Get a lot of great phone calls on the show. Again, educational purposes. We'll play one back and let's give it a listen.
I'm talking about my son. He had a seizure at work, diagnosed with epilepsy. During the course of this, he went on short-term, then they put him on long-term. Then they repeatedly called him and tried to harass him into going back. They told him that his long-term was running out. I certainly don't like how they harassed him, and they were telling him they were cutting him off. He was so stressed, he went into another series of seizures.
Not uncommon, this type of behavior.
Not uncommon, and I'm telling you, I have no idea why the government doesn't put in more stringent regulations about this kind of stuff. You know, insurance companies, I've dealt with insurance for a better part of my adult life, okay? First I defended insurance companies, and then I started suing them for a living. And I'll tell you, sometimes you come across really decent people, whether it's the adjusters or the lawyers, and sometimes it's just horrible to deal with some of these people. But the reality is that what this gentleman is describing with his son is not uncommon based on our experience. People come to us oftentimes traumatized by the behavior of some of these adjusters who should not have this job. And you know, so anyways, the reality is that in this kind of a circumstance here, we can push back against the insurance company quite easily, actually. All we're going to do is we're going to get the medical records from the doctors. We're going to advise the insurance company that they're not allowed to speak with him anymore, with his son. They have to go through us. So at least from that perspective, he's not going to get those phone calls anymore. He's not going to get those harassing phone calls. And number two, we're going to get the necessary medical opinions that unequivocally say that he's not ready to go back to work. And once we do that with the insurance company, they're going to back off. Now, this gentleman here may say, John, well, you know, my son gave him this documentation. Our doctor said that, you know, he can't go back to work, and they're still not listening. There is a difference between you giving those reports and us giving those reports to the insurance company. What's the difference, you ask? The difference is that we have legal tools at our disposal. Those legal tools are like pressure levers, right? We can apply pressure on the insurance company. And when the insurance company acts in a high-handed way, when they act in a bullying way, in a harassing way, and we document that, when we go after the insurance company and this adjuster, we're not just going for those benefits. We're going for more money. We're going for punishment. And we have cases from judges and courts across the country punishing these insurance companies. Now, unfortunately, this behavior persists because a lot of times they get away with it, so a lot of these adjusters don't get the message. But that doesn't mean that we can't go after them and punish them for this kind of behavior.
Lots more to go. 3 common questions about IMEs, independent medical examinations. That's on the other side of the break. In the meantime, use that phone number. It's a free consultation and a chat, of course, with Sivan and his team. 1-855-821-5900. Email if you prefer, help@disabilityrights.ca. Lots more. The Disability Law Show is on the way. Stick with us. People think contractors aren't owed severance. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Many contractors are actually employees and are entitled to full severance pay. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. How do you force insurance companies to pay long-term disability claims?
Insurance companies deny legitimate claims all the time. They're playing the odds. They know that most people are just going to walk away.
Your insurer may ignore you, they may even ignore your doctors, but they can't ignore us.
We know how insurance companies work. We know their weaknesses. We know how to use the legal process to force them to pay you what you're owed.
Go to disabilityrights.ca. Discover your rights, fight back, and get what you're owed. People think you are only owed 2 weeks' pay when you lose your job. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. You may be owed much more than 2 weeks per year. Don't settle for less. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around here. The Disability Law Show. Your host, John Scholes, and Sivan Tumarkin from disabilityrights.ca. course, a disability lawyer, weekly here on the show, educating you. We always have a main topic because it helps to fill your brain with a positive message and the things you need to know when dealing with these big insurance companies. You can always reach out with a phone call as well. The consultations are free. Have a chat as well, 1-855-821-5900. Back that up with an email. How about that? help@disabilityrights.ca. Okay, first of three common questions, Sivan. What is an independent medical examination, an IME? What is that?
So let's start from the fact that it's not independent, okay? But insurance companies will tell you that they're going to be sending you to an IME, an independent medical examination. And what they mean is that they've selected a doctor. They're going to be paying that doctor to examine you, presumably, and then crank out a report, which is going to essentially explain what they found, what their recommendations are, what their assessment is, what their prognosis is of your condition, etc. And the reason I laugh and I say independent, let's erase that word, is because I remember that as an insurance lawyer 20 years ago, I used to get those things arranged. I used to do these for the insurance company. And they were not independent. I would have a roster of doctors that I would select and I would recommend to the insurance company. And why would I select those doctors? Because I knew that those doctors were defense-oriented, were insurance-oriented. So the reality is that these assessments are required under insurance policies, okay? You can't say no to them. Typically, it's enshrined in your long-term disability policy that if they ask you to go to one of these, you have to do it. But there's ways to deal with these. There's ways to act within those examinations. And people ask me, what happens if the insurance doctor then says something that contradicts whatever my doctor's saying? Well, just like in the last segment where we talked about this, I only care about what your treating doctors are saying. I don't really care what the insurance company's doctor is saying. Why? Because the insurance company doctor is a hired gun. Courts know this, judges know this, juries know this. It doesn't mean insurance companies are not going to try and use them, because they got to try and use something. But as long as you have good doctors on your side, treating doctors who are backing you up, that you can't work and that you're undergoing certain treatments and you're trying to get better, then you should be okay. But what is an independent medical examination? It's essentially an assessment organized and arranged for by the insurance company, and it's done under the guise of trying to figure out what's wrong with you and what we're going to do with you, but really it's often used as a tool to give them whatever they need to back up their decision to, most of the time, cut off your disability benefits.
So if I'm on benefits now, I'm hearing this, it's already got it's kind of leaving a bad taste in my mouth. So I know the first question would be, and you kind of answered, do I have to go? I don't want to do this. So how do I combat that?
So I want to make sure that I talk about this in a nuanced way. Yes, you have to go, but there's a caveats. For example, one of the caveats is that it has to be the correct examination. For example, if you're suffering from mental health issues and they want to send you to an orthopedic surgeon, what's the point of that? Now, I know it's an extreme example, but there are other examples which are not as extreme, where it's clear that the insurance company adjuster doesn't really understand your condition. Maybe you have a neurological issue and they're sending you to an expert or a specialist that doesn't really deal with those conditions. Well, you can question the insurance company as to why you're being sent to this particular individual, right? Because that assessor is not the correct assessor. So which means that their conclusions may very well be faulty because they don't understand your condition. Also, I've had situations with people who are told, you have to go to an assessment, and guess what? It's like 10 hours away. And the person says, well, I can't be in the car for 10 hours. Are you going to pay for my flight, for the hotel night, So again, you have to comply in that you have an obligation to go to one of these, but there are some caveats. And I tell people, if you have questions, or if you're even told to go to one of these examinations, give us a call so we can help you through it and explain, what the insurance company is allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, what your rights are, how you should behave, what to do during and after these examinations, right? You need to understand that, because that's how you arm yourself with the information that will allow you to mitigate anything bad that comes out of these examinations.
It's kind of interesting, too, before I ask you the last question. You mentioned the adjuster there, and I think it's worth mentioning, as you have on the show in the past, if you pull back the curtain on these companies, these adjusters generally have a stack this high, yay high of cases, and they may have just gotten your file. So they don't know you very well, and they're not nuanced in the details of your case, right?
Yeah.
It's not good for them.
You're right. I've talked to many adjusters over my career, and I can tell you that they're often overworked. They got a ton of cases on their desk. I can't imagine that they know your case anywhere near as good as you can because you're living with your condition. So you're absolutely right, John. The reality is that most of the time they're doing things in a kind of a fast-paced environment. They're missing things, they're making mistakes, which is good for us when it comes time for us to challenge them and to get their file and look at all the mistakes. But you're absolutely right. And it's one of those cases where you have to understand where they're coming from as well.
The last question is, can an assessment lead to cutoff from disability benefits, or should that be replaced with should or will it? Right?
It often does. Yeah. And again, I don't want to freak people out because there are ways to mitigate this and ways to fight against this. If you are being told that you need to go to one of these assessments, you need to give us a call. You need to communicate with us. Again, it doesn't cost anything to get this information, but we can walk you through the situation, tell you what to expect. If we can help you understand the scenario, why it is that they're doing it, what can happen, what you should be doing, how you should be acting, what happens after, it will lower your stress levels because you'll understand where you are, where you fit in, where all of this, what the picture looks like. And really, John, at the end of the day, these assessments, even though they sometimes get used and oftentimes get used, these reports that get generated by these insurance doctors, they get used by insurance companies to justify a cutoff. We oftentimes are able to fight these very, very successfully. So don't freak out. If that happens, please contact us ASAP, and we will help you. We'll tell you exactly what needs to be done.
We'll take a short break and pop in an email or two with the remaining few minutes of the show. But in the meantime, always reach out to Sivan and his team. The consultation is absolutely free. The phone call, of course, 1-855-821-5900. And that email address is help@disabilityrights.ca. There's more coming up. Stay with us.
People think you have to sign back a severance offer by a deadline. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Deadlines are used as a pressure tactic. Make sure the offer is fair before you sign. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca. Can insurance companies deny long-term disability claims for mental illness?
When you're suffering from a mental health disability, insurance companies just don't understand. But we do.
They can absolutely not force you back to work. If your doctors say you are not ready and you know you're not ready, they cannot make you go back to work.
If you have a mental health disability and your claim is denied, don't give up. Give us a call and let us fight for you.
Go to disabilityrights.ca. Discover your rights, fight back, and get what you're owed. People think you aren't owed severance pay if you are fired for a reason. EmploymentLawyer.ca says that is a myth. Most for-cause terminations are false, and you are still owed full severance. Always check with the employment lawyer first at EmploymentLawyer.ca.
And welcome back to the Disability Law Show. I want to give you the phone number right off the top as we come back from a break to reach out to Sivan and his team. Consultations are free. Have a chat, 1-855-821-5900, or double that up with an email. How about that? help@disabilityrights.ca. That is where we're going right now, Sivan. So listen up to Jennifer's email. It says, my sister has been on disability leave for the past year, receiving benefits due to a concussion and ongoing symptoms. After much therapy, her medical team cleared her to gradually return to work part-time. However, the insurance is pushing her to return to her full-time position, which it's not realistic for her. What can she do if she returns to work full-time but then starts to feel worse?
Okay, excellent question, John. And something that happens quite often with the insurance company is pressuring you to go back to work or back to work in a capacity that you're not ready for, and your doctors have not cleared you to go to. So this is important to understand, that the insurance company cannot actually force you to go back either to work or to go back to work the same hours and duties that you do not feel comfortable doing and that the doctors have not cleared you to return to. And what can you do about that? Number one, you can get a letter or a report, whatever it is you need to do, from your doctors, whoever's treating you, to the insurance company, outlining exactly what the limits are of your gradual return to work. So let your doctors speak for you to make sure that they specify to the insurance company what are the limits medically of what they're clearing you to do. Once the insurance company gets that, they literally have no grounds to force you to go back to any other kinds of duties or push you to a full-time work. But Jennifer is also asking, what happens if she goes back to work and then she's unable to continue, she gets worse? Again, that happens, unfortunately, often. Most insurance policies, disability policies, contain what's called a recurrence clause. We talked about this many times before. It is a safety net. The idea behind it is that if you try to go back to work and you're unsuccessful within a certain time period, oftentimes it's within 3 months or 6 months, around that range, if your doctors feel during that time that you should go back on disability because your return to work, your gradual return to work is not successful, premature perhaps, then the insurance company should be able to put you back on disability. You won't have to wait the initial elimination period, which is a period of time where you don't get any benefits at the beginning of the claim. But again, John, the problem is that most people who actually try to go back to work and then are finding that they can't, that they need more time off, once they try to go back, activate that recurrence clause, they get resistance from the adjuster. Again, this is where we come in and we help. We push back against the insurance company. That should not happen. As long as your doctors are on your side, as long as your doctors are confirming that you, in fact, cannot continue working, you need more time off, the insurance company should comply and let you back on disability.
I want to refer to mydisabilityquestions.com right here, Sivan, for another question from Raina. Says, I'm applying for long-term disability. I have vestibular dysfunction that leads to frequent falls and chronic severe migraines. I do physiotherapy, see a chiropractor and osteopath regularly. After more than a year without improvement, I developed anxiety and depression. I fear many of my symptoms are subjective. While I've had an MRI and CT scan, the results were inconclusive. Do I have any chance of being approved?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do not worry about your symptoms or your condition needing to be objective. What does objective mean anyways? You know, if I have a headache, is that objective? If I have depression, is that objective? Mm-hmm. Objectivity, subjectivity. Look, insurance companies may throw these terms out at you. Don't worry about them. And the reason you shouldn't worry about them is because courts have confirmed that many of these symptoms, even the ones Irena here is mentioning, they absolutely entitle you to disability if the symptoms because of those conditions disable you from working. Ultimately, that's what we're looking at. And your doctors are going to be the ones who are going to be writing a letter or explaining in their clinical notes and records why it is that you're unable to work at the present time. And as long as you have that backing from your doctors, the insurance company must approve you. And if they don't, you call us, you tell us, and we're going to help you. But insurance companies, it doesn't stop them, John, from saying, oh, there's nothing objective here, or the CT scan's showing nothing, or the MRI. That's nonsense. It's meaningless, and they know it. They know it. So as long as your doctors are saying you are unable to work, we recommend that you stay off work for the foreseeable future, the insurance company should approve you. They should not turn you back by saying there's nothing objective here. It's nonsense.
Because you've often said, especially when it comes to things like anxiety and mental disorders, it might not show up in fact, it won't show up in an MRI or CT, but, you know, 30 years ago, we didn't have the technology we do now that shows more. 30 years in the future, maybe we'll have something that physically, objectively shows depression. We don't now. It doesn't mean it's not real.
No, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. Objectivity and subjectivity, those are terms, again, I'm not going to say they're conjured by the insurance company, but they're abused by the insurance company. You know, by the way, you can have, an MRI that shows that you broke your hand and you can't work, but maybe you broke your hand and you can work. So the fact that you have something objective doesn't mean you're disabled. But you can also have a symptom or a condition that is not objective, meaning you can't see it on an X-ray or imaging, some other imaging. It doesn't mean it's not disabling you. Depression, anxiety, those kinds of mental illnesses and other types of mental illnesses can be extremely debilitating, a lot more than even the physical types of injuries and illnesses. So no, I don't buy it. Judges don't buy it. People understand the reality. And insurance companies, when they try to deny claims on that basis, they get burned. But you have to know to give us a call to let us help you with that. Because if you take whatever the insurance company is selling you, if the insurance company is telling you we're not going to pay you the benefits and you accept that, that's on you. We're telling you that you have options that we can fight back for you.
It seems like low-hanging fruit. Every time we do the show for several years now, it's always the anxiety and the mental depression that's low-hanging fruit for them.
Because it is for insurance companies, because it's for the insurance companies, absolutely, because most people walk away and they shouldn't. They should call us.
We are just about done for the day. Appreciate you, all of your, adding to the show with your emails and such. You want to email Sivan and his team anytime. Continue to do so. They will get read. They might not appear in the show, but they always get read. That is help@disabilityrights.ca. The last one came from mydisabilityquestions.com. That is free. That is anonymous, and you always back it up with that phone call. Consultations are free. Just phone, have a chat with Sivan and his team. Get some information. It's key. That's the whole point of this show. The number, 1-855-821-5900. Really appreciate you contributing this week. We'll do it again next week. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again.